Ooh, a spicy question. I
because
love
the writing is sort of everything, right? Like you kind of can fix plot holes, but if the writing isn't
So some
there,
readers love that, and some readers are like, but I wanted more of this. So it's kind of a gamble.
Hello and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. On today's episode, I am joined by a memoir and creative nonfiction writer, a climate consultant and podcaster. It's Madelyn Postman. Hello.
Hello. Great to be here today.
Thank you so much for coming on. Let's jump right in and talk about, very excitingly, your new book, Staring into the Sun, which is out on the 5th of May. What is it? Tell us about it.
So it is a linked memoir and true stories of my Chinese American family, and it spans 1895 to 2015. It's a collection of 9 stories, and each story could be read independently as short stories. But I think that the order in which they are in the book will allow the readers to get the most out of the experience.
Okay. Is it chronological, or is it ordered in such a way that is not chronological, but you think is like you said, the best experience?
It's not chronological. I guess we'll probably talk about the history of the writing a bit later, but originally I had one story set in 2015. Then I went back to 1895 and then worked my way back up to the present. And in a way, it does start in the present. It goes back and it still follows that general arc. It's sort of a loop, or I heard some fancy name for it, which I can't remember right now. But it's, if you imagine a sort of circle with an overlap on it, it does that.
Okay. Yeah. And it's a linked memoir. So am I right in thinking that means that it is sort of biographical, but of different people that have stories that sort of weave within one another?
Yes. So the linking is between the memoir and its historical narrative or creative nonfiction. So the whole description is it's a debut, a hybrid memoir, historical narrative nonfiction short story collection.
Okay.
So there are 4 memoir chapters written in the first person that are my memoir, and then 5 chapters that are historical creative nonfiction. So they're the stories of my family with as many facts as I could humanly find, and then filling in a bit of dialogue and things that I thought were plausible from other sources.
Okay, right. So I imagine there was a pretty heavy research part of this, just kind of speaking with your family and like going through old things and stuff.
Definitely. Yeah. So I actually started writing at the beginning of 2017, and I began by researching both sides of my family. So I'm American, as you can hear, with a weird transatlantic accent from being in the UK since 2000. And my mother's side is Chinese, and they've been in the US since about 4 or 5 generations. And then my father's side is from Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, with Jewish heritage. And they're actually more recent immigrants generally, with my dad's dad coming over in 1903. So I began researching both sides of my family. And that was initially on the Jewish side through a genealogist specialized in Polish Jewish genealogy, and then through also another genealogist on that side. And then it's mostly Ancestry.com and newspapers.com records was a lot of the research. And then there were also quite a few interviews with family and some sort of family friends. And that made up the bulk of the research, together with some books like Jade Snow Wong's 5th Chinese daughter. I think it's the right order of her. Anyway, the right title for Jade Snow Wong's essentially autobiography or her memoir. That was a great source because it was a Chinese woman born in San Francisco Chinatown, similar age to my great grandmother. So sources like that were really fantastic to sort of fill in some of the color along with the family stories.
Okay, so 2017. This has been in the works for a long time. Then,
yes.
When you first started doing the family history stuff, was that because you knew you wanted to write these stories, or was it more? Did it start off as more of a curiosity?
So I started on the family research with an idea to write the stories. So I wanted to really find out more. And then because I just love writing so much, I thought it would give a project where I could write and find out more about my family history at the same time, and find out more about general history. And then another aspect was that my mother died when I was young, and I wanted to sort of deal with that. And I thought if I force myself to write, and that's in a way why it went back to the past, because I knew I would have to get back and sort of deal with her story at some point.
Oh, wow. This sounds like a pretty healthy and like enlightening experience for you, creating this book and researching it.
It was very multidimensional in terms of that sort of almost more like cerebral research, or, historical, academic, maybe is better than cerebral. And even the interviews, sort of dealing with these really difficult conversations by framing them as an interview to do book research. And I guess I gave myself the permission, and the people I spoke with gave that permission to talk about these things that I'd never asked about before.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite amazing, because I think of writing as such a sort of personal process, and then for an author to put their writing out there, you leave so much of yourself on the page. It's a very vulnerable thing to do, even if you're writing fantasy or whatever it might be. There's still so much of you. But when it comes to memoir, there's like, obviously it's not like it's not subconsciously you. It's very actively and clearly you. Is there a certain does it feel scary with this book coming out, knowing that you're kind of like putting so much of yourself out there?
Definitely. I mean, I was thinking the other day, I feel like I'm just completely naked. I have the book launch coming up. And I thought I could just like go there naked. It would be the same thing as people reading my book, because it's, it is all out there. And it's sort of ironic that it was particularly around my mother's death. And I don't know how far I'll get into it, or how much I can actually talk about it, because I feel like I've written about it, and I still don't know how much I feel comfortable talking about it. But having this topic that I never talked about, and having it, extremely public, it is kind of a weird feeling, but I'm also happy that I did it, and feel like it's sort of a necessary thing to do to get that story out there.
Yeah, I imagine it will come when it comes out. When you speak to people who have read it, I imagine there'll be a catharsis, like a sort of setting free of yourself, knowing that that's out there, and that there's not really anything to hide in a way.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the writing of it was like that. And then particularly with her chapter, I know I have to sort of be careful, because when I went through different rounds of editing, I got through a particular round and I just thought I wanted to just like chuck the whole thing away and stop. I was like, I'm going to start a new project based on the same people, but I'll make it, I'll put time travel in there. And, and then I realized, I just need to sit with this and know that it's difficult. And it was similar because there's actually an audiobook as well. So it's been a similar process, each stage of, so I read the memoir chapters, and a friend of mine who's an actor reads the non-memoir. So just, sitting with her through the reading, through the audio editing, I just have to say like, this is I just need to be like gentle with myself, particularly for that chapter.
Was this the first time that you'd written memoir, or had you written other things in that vein before?
So I started writing with different stories. Let me think. I guess I started writing this book, which was originally called 16 Stories, because it was about both sides of the family. So it was myself and my brother, our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. And so from about 2017 to 2022 or so, I was doing the research and writing. And then around 2022, I started listening to different podcasts and doing more classes, and just, I think, generally improving my writing. And I did, at that point, some flash and some short stories. And that's what eventually got it into the more of a short story format. And I think making each story stronger as well. So I hadn't written a separate memoir to this before, but in the whole process, it was very iterative, as you can tell. Yeah. There were different stories, and I wrote sort of the word's escaping me right now, but it's a basically fictional short story flash piece about my great grandfather who appears in the book as well. Speculative, that's the right word.
Okay.
And that actually was shortlisted in the Oxford Flash Fiction Prize. So that was published a couple of years ago now. So just sort of like playing with the different subject matters in different ways as well. And there's another short story I wrote, which I'd like to base my novel on, which would be the second half of the family, but in fictionalized form. So I've got a bit more leeway and don't have to sort of footnote all the references, which I did do in Staring into the Sun, which was lots of fun to do 20 pages of end notes for that.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like your kind of writing experience prior to this was working on short fiction and doing sort of these short snapshots somewhere between your own experiences and then creative nonfiction.
Yes, I'd say really not prior. So this is, it is my debut and I haven't written anything full length before this. So I would say I started with this book and then during that process, broadened out to some shorter pieces.
Okay, that's interesting. I saw online you have a Substack called The Spark. Am I right in thinking that you've put some of this book on the Substack, some excerpts of it?
Yes, actually the whole book.
The whole book, okay.
Yes, yeah. So I met someone called Elena Anstruther, who's really brilliant, and she's published both traditionally and self-published and hybrid published. And she was talking about serialization on Substack. So people do serialization in different ways. Some write every day. That's what she did. Just, publish every day, no matter what. Some write sort of, live and publish it as they go. And then they might go back and clean it up a bit and then publish it as a whole piece. And then inspired by her, I thought, well, it's basically written. I've got the rights to publish it online because my publisher has the paperback rights and the print rights. And so I did that. It was really to create more of an audience, to engage with some readers. And I think I forgot to, I haven't quite figured out if people can still access it or not, but I'm not too concerned about it being out there while also having the paid version out there. So I'm more concerned about, AI and things like that sort of scraping it, but that's sort of hard to avoid anyway. Yeah.
Okay. So you kind of, at what point did you meet Eleanor? Was it before you'd started writing it, or had you already started writing it and then you were like, oh, I could serialize this on Substack?
I met her after. So I met her probably I can't think of the timing, probably maybe last spring, like spring of 2025. And then I serialized it over a certain number of weeks between August and December last year. So every Saturday I would publish. I sort of chopped it up. I think it was 22 maybe installments. So I just chopped it up in terms of word count and put it out there.
Okay. Were you already on Substack, or did you literally create the Substack with that intention and then you kind of grown it out from there?
So I got onto Substack around the summer of 2023, and I did, I think it was 12 weeks of a weekly Substack, and that was reading recommendations, writing tips, and author interviews, and then updates on whatever I was doing. So I did that for about 12 weeks, and then I tend to sort of get into things that take time away from the main thing. And I just thought, well, I can't, if I'm trying to pull this Substack together every week, I don't really have time to write and do other things because I work full time on top of all of this. Mm-hmm. So then I stopped. And then in July 2024, I think it was, I started a monthly author interview. I'm getting mixed up now. But anyway, at some point, I brought the author interviews in. Maybe I think I didn't have author interviews in the first round. That was it. And then I think July 2024, I started the author interviews, which first they were written. And then I had the authors do a little sound bite, and then I would kind of edit it together. And then I went to live interviews. So that's been going every month since then. And then for the past few months, I've stopped that and have just done an excerpt from the audiobook. And I might get back to author interviews in the summer. Again, I'm just wary of taking on too many things and not getting the main things done. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think of Substack as a place for authors? Because when I first started this podcast, everyone in the writing kind of community and publishing was on Twitter, but that for various reasons has massively diminished, and now people are all over the place. Blue Sky, Instagram. What do you think of Substack now that you've kind of used it quite extensively as a place for the kind of online writing community to go to?
I think it's a great place. I do it more in sort of an outbound way. I don't actually spend that much time on Substack. But I think if you want to spend time there, there's a lot there. There's some really great Substacks that are often, I used the platform it's my podcasting platform as well, which was really handy. So I'll record the podcast, and then if you get it by email, you'll have a link to listen in the browser, or you can find it on all the regular podcast platforms, or not platforms, but where you would normally listen to podcasts.
Sure.
And then most people, I would say, it's more of a newsletter format, and that might be any frequency that they choose. And I know, again, there are just some really excellent Substacks out there, and there's a great community through the Notes app also. So yeah, it's a great place. Personally, I use Instagram a lot more, and then I'm on Blue Sky a little bit, but I think it just depends. For me, it's more like having one platform and using that mostly. So not trying to be across all the different platforms. And for me, it's Instagram.
Yeah, I think that's a better way of doing it, is focusing on just one and building your kind of community there. Let's change lanes a bit here. To go back onto a bit more of your writing. So obviously this is your first book, and this is creative nonfiction. Are you, going forwards as a writer, are you mainly focused on more on the nonfiction side, or do you want to work in some fiction at some point?
I definitely want to move to fiction. I find it a lot more freeing because I'm a little compulsive about information. So when I'm working in nonfiction, I get really bogged down in getting the facts right, and which is I think it's a good thing. But at the same time, like when I'm especially through listening to the audiobook, I'm going through and doing little edits, and I come across something that I didn't put in the end notes on the back, and I can't just let it go. I need to put that in, and I find that very it's like too much of an obligation, really. So I think in terms of fiction, it will allow me to focus more on the craft and not worry about having every little fact sort of backed up with a newspaper reference or something like that. So definitely going toward fiction.
Okay, and have you started writing and trying out a few ideas within fiction, or is that still kind of pending?
Yep. So one of my short stories that I wrote during a short story class I did with City Lit in 2023, it's called Data Double, and it's about a PR consultant who's a control freak, and she basically loses control of her identity, and her assistant, who's well-meaning, sets up an avatar, which is like a data double for her boss, and just creates all kinds of havoc, essentially. So I'm taking that plot and then having a backstory of the half of my family who didn't get into staring into the sun. So the PR consultant will have this Jewish genealogy, and she'll start to do research as she's losing control of her identity. She wants to go back to the past to research her family, to get more of a sense of herself. But then when she does the research, she finds out that her name isn't the name she thought she had, her surname. And so again, it's, just sort of pulls the rug out from beneath her. So so I've completely outlined that book, and I've written maybe 20,000 words of it. And so that's what I want to go back to, hopefully in the second half of this year, seeing how much time my current book takes up at that point.
Okay, cool. That sounds really interesting, and like a sort of obvious expansion and sort of growth from this book, which you've done all this research in. yeah, it's a cool idea to kind of grow those themes into a cool nonfiction idea, which would work perfectly with that. Have you found, mapping out and stuff, obviously without the referencing, which you worry about, but do you feel like the process is quite different when you're writing fiction or nonfiction, or other than the notation, it's kind of the same?
So I'd say that the overlap. So I bounced back back and forth between Save the Cat writes a novel and by Jessica, I can't think of her last name, and Story Genius by Lisa Krohn. And it's funny because Story Genius says Save the Cat doesn't work. None of these structural plotting devices work. But I find that using them in conjunction really helps, because with Story Genius, it's about what's driving your character, and she calls it the third rail. It's like this charge that goes throughout your character and drives them, and it's what they want to accomplish. So even in in Story Genius, she's got these scene cards where you're saying, what are the plot points? What are those driving? And then what are those sort of third rail underlying progressions at the same time that are going in parallel to that? So when I was rewriting the chapters in Staring into the Sun, I used these scene cards to like plot out every single chapter. And I think that really helped. And I would have a sort of, I've then added to that. So I would have a theme of, like in the chapter called Gold Mountain about my great-grandfather, there's a theme of twins. So it's him vacillating between wanting to stay in China and emigrating to America. So I added that to the scene card for that. So I just say, like, this is my theme, twins, bring it in as a sort of in the language without being too heavy-handed about it. So yeah, that was my device within Staring into the Sun. And I think that made it stronger from the first round, when it was a bit of an info dump and, hey, look at all this research I did, just adding facts because I knew about them, but they weren't necessarily relevant. So I think that approach is very similar for fiction, because I was writing Staring into the Sun as if it were fiction. I wanted it to read like fiction. Yeah.
Okay. But then you are using, you weren't using Save the Cat in the same, weren't implementing it in the same ways with this previous one as you would do with fiction.
Correct. Yeah. Because Save the Cat is the overall arc of the whole book. And I think a short story is a little bit, it's a bit short to do the whole Save the Cat.
That's true. Yeah.
All of the beats in there. So I have mapped out, so the working title is I Am Gone for my next book. So I have mapped that all out according to Save the Cat, and then working with the scene cards for what I've written so far to write each scene from Story Genius.
Okay, that sounds great. It sounds like you've really found the kind of best of both of those worlds that works for you and combine them together.
Yeah.
Looking forward to hearing more about that in the future. We are at the point in the episode where I ask you, Madelyn, if you were snowed in at a cozy woodland cabin in the middle of nowhere, which book would you hope to have with you?
So I've got it here. I haven't read it yet, but it's on my bookshelf. It's Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin.
Oh, yeah.
So I have not read much fantasy. It is fantasy category, right? Am I getting this right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Quintessential. I haven't read much fantasy, and I thought if I'm snowed in a cabin, I will read this book, and because it's been so many people love it, and maybe I would hate it, but I have a sense that I would love it, and it's quite thick. Just give myself the time to sink in with it and to enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, Jamie Cohen, literary agent, was on just the other day, and he picked, he's a huge fantasy guy, and of all the fantasy he's read, he picked the Earthsea sequence as well. And I mean, it's Ursula Le Guin is in my opinion, one of the greatest writers of all time. She's just so good. Everything she's written is just a work of genius, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for you that you haven't read that and you get to experience Earthsea and Ursula. Have you read Ursula Le Guin before, or would this be your first?
Yeah, it'd be the first one. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. She's got some incredible... The one for me is The Left Hand of Darkness.
Okay.
Like, blew my mind, but just a fantastic writer. And I'm excited that you've picked that, and excited that you will be reading that at some point soon.
When I get to the cabin.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're just waiting now.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll send a car around.
Oh, thank you. Very kind.
Next up, we are going to chat a bit more about the publishing side of things, working with a hybrid publisher submission and everything that leads up to publication. That will all be in the extended episode available on patreon.com/right-and-wrong.
It's like a whole cleaning service set up just so that people don't have to write. Like they'll go and clean your house so they don't have to write.
Yeah. That makes sense. At least writers are making their procrastination productive.
Yes. Exactly.
Perfect. Okay, well that's great. And it's been so great chatting with you. We're at the end of the episode now. Thank you so much, Madelyn, for coming on and telling us all about your debut book, Staring into the Sun. It's been so interesting hearing about your journey and hearing everything about 1016 and the kind of the new emergent hybrid publishers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie. That was really, really fun.
And for anyone listening, if you want to keep up with what Madelyn's doing, you can find her Substack, The Spark, at madelynpostman.substack.com. You can find her on Instagram at Madelyn Postman, and she has a website, madelynpostman.com. Staring into the Sun is out May 5th in the US and the UK. And to support this podcast, like, follow, and subscribe. Join the Patreon for ad-free extended episodes and check out my other podcasts, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. Thanks again, Madelyn. Thanks to everyone listening. We will catch you on the next episode.